Le ton va encore monter sur le Club Poker Radio. Une émission présentée par Winamax, la référence du poker en ligne.
Et ben voilà, nous revoici toujours en compagnie de Chichi et Gaël Jodon nous a rejoint. Bonsoir.
Salut à tous, bonsoir.
Bonsoir Gaël.
Toutes de multicolores vêtues.
Multicolores, oui.
Et à côté de toi nous a rejoint Jeff Platt. Hello Jeff.
Hello Jeff.
We are live.
Hey guys, we are live. This is amazing. We are live. We have made it. We have all made it. Hope everybody is doing well. Thank you guys so much for having me. I don't speak a word of French, but it's a beautiful language.
Il est très content d'être avec nous. Il nous dit que vraiment c'est la meilleure émission à laquelle il a participé. Et je vais
en direct de Dallas.
En direct de Dallas. Gaël, je vais te laisser faire la véritable traduction et nous présenter un petit peu cette personne.
Oui. Donc alors pour ceux qui ne le connaissent pas, je pense qu'il y en a beaucoup qui ont déjà vu sa tête parce qu'il présente la plupart des émissions qui sont sur PokerGo. Il fait aussi pas mal de présentations pour Poker News. Donc il a fait aussi tous les WSOP sur Twitch. Ça a pas mal cartonné sa chaîne. Donc il commentait tous les WSOP online cet été. Et donc voilà, ça devient une figure quand même assez reconnue dans le milieu du poker. Après, en dehors de ça, il a aussi quand même 300 cas de gains live. Et aussi des gains online, donc quand même, il se débrouille pas mal aussi au poker. So yeah, I was just presenting you briefly for the French community. The interesting fact is that you started your career as a TV reporter for the NBA. So I thought it was pretty cool. You covered the Dallas Mavericks first, and then the Spurs San Antonio, for people who don't know, before moving to Vegas to work in the poker industry. So what are the major differences between broadcasting poker and versus basketball? Like, how did you have to adapt?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I was actually surprised by how similar the two were. You know, I think the top level of poker players are so incredibly competitive, and the same can be said for the NBA. I mean, these are the top players in the world. Shout out Tony Parker. I think that would kind of resonate with you guys. You know, Theo Maladon, I don't know, just trying to think, Rudy Gobert maybe. So when you have the best of the best, they just want to win, and they're so passionate about it. So it was really just adjusting in the specific sense, becoming better at asking poker specific questions and not just being like, how do you feel after this tournament? How do you feel after this tournament? Just trying to get really specific and to get players to open up a little bit, which you do in both fields.
Donc, pour résumer un peu, je lui demandais, parce qu'il avait commencé sa carrière en tant que présentateur, donc il suivait toute la saison de NBA, notamment pour les Spurs de San Antonio, et donc en quoi il avait dû s'adapter quand il a bougé dans l'industrie du poker. En quoi c'était quelle différence, les plus grandes différences entre faire des interviews poker versus basket. Et donc, il a dit que finalement, il n'y avait pas en gros tellement de différence que ça parce qu'il y avait un esprit de compétition hyper fort, aussi fort dans d'un domaine que dans l'autre. Quand on interviewe quelqu'un comme Tony Parker ou d'autres grands joueurs qui étaient à San Antonio, et quand on interviewe ensuite des grands joueurs pros de poker, c'est un petit peu la même envie de gagner, la même motivation, et que ça pousse aussi à essayer de poser des questions peut-être un peu plus recherchées que simplement comment tu te sens dans le tournoi, est-ce que tu vas bien et tout, et que c'était intéressant d'essayer de chercher un petit peu ces personnalités-là et de en découvrir un petit peu plus sur des personnes comme ça qui hyper motivées, quoi. And I don't know if you understand French a little bit.
It's a beautiful, beautiful language. Just I don't understand a word of it. But it's gorgeous. Just hearing French, it's fantastic.
And so I read that you were following the Spurs for like every game. So and that the coach Popovich was like someone really terrifying to interview for the journalist. So do you have some funny anecdotes with that, and how did that help you to become a better player?
Sure, that's a great question. So I was scared of Coach Popovich from the very beginning.
Everybody's scared of him.
Everybody's scared.
Everybody's scared. I'm still scared. I spent 3 years with him, and I'm still terrified. So the first time that I asked him a question, I was so nervous. My voice was shaking. I was holding this big microphone and my arms were shaking. I was just just so scared because in front of me was Greg Popovich. He's 2 feet away from me. You know, we didn't do interviews on Zoom back in the day. This was real life. He was right there, the legend that is.
No
and
smile.
I knew.
No smile.
Yeah, no. I don't think I saw him smile once in 3 years. And I knew, I have seen all the clips of him just dressing down the reporters, of him cutting them off, of him thinking that it's a stupid question, et cetera, et cetera. And I knew, because people in San Antonio told me that if you're brand new, he's probably going to give it to you, that
like
you're probably just in for it. Yeah, exactly. Just like you're the rookie on the team. So here I go. He's talking about Thiago Splitter, a Brazilian player. He's talking about his defense for that game. And he had a great game on offense. He was 8 of 10 from the field. He had 18 points in 20 minutes. And so my question was, what made him so efficient on the offensive end tonight? Which I thought was, I still think to this day is a good question. It's fine. It's short. It's to the point. I don't ramble. I don't go on and on and on. It's just real short, just like that. And so he just stares at me just directly, just like that for 5 seconds. 5 seconds is a very long time if you're just standing there in a crowded room. And finally he goes, I don't know how to answer that. And then he turns around and walks away. So the press conference is over, based on me, basically. Like I took the blame for ending the press conference. But, you know, after that, I got to know him just a little bit, and he was fantastic. And he made me a better reporter, because I always knew that I had to come ask him a good question or he would just crush me.
Non, parce que je lui demandais, parce que Popovic, donc c'est l'entraîneur des Spurs, et il est super réputé pour être vraiment dur avec les journalistes et il est hyper intimidant. Et donc il a dit, d'ailleurs, je crois que je l'ai jamais vu sourire en 3 ans. Et la première fois que j'ai dû lui poser une question, j'étais en train de trembler, je tenais le micro, j'étais pas bien. Surtout que voilà, il était aussi connu pour quand tu arrives dans l'équipe, il va vraiment te donner te faire vivre un moment difficile. Et donc, du coup, il a posé sa question qui était sur, je ne sais plus quel joueur, qui avait marqué énormément de points sur la première partie. Donc, il a dit comment ça se fait, comment vous expliquez qu'il était aussi performant sur la première partie. Il dit, pour moi, c'était une bonne question parce qu'elle était rapide, elle était, genre droite au but et tout. Et en fait, il m'a regardé pendant 5 secondes. C'est très long, 5 secondes. Et il est parti, il a fait demi-tour, il est parti. Il a dit, je ne sais pas répondre à cette question. Et il est parti. Donc, la conférence de presse était terminée. Et donc, il a dit, pour moi, c'était un moment super difficile. Mais après, j'ai appris à le connaître. Et finalement, il m'a énormément appris parce que grâce à lui, je suis devenue... j'ai pu devenir vraiment meilleure en interview et m'entraîner. Et, donc, c'était des très bons moments, quoi.
T'imagines le jour où ça va t'arriver? L'invité qui éteint sa webcam et qui se barre. Tu vas être contente, hein?
I hope it's never gonna happen to me. Like one day, like the guest just shut down the webcam.
Yeah. If you get Phil Ivey on the show, it might happen. You know, Phil Ivey's got a little Greg Popovich.
Yeah, that was one of my question too. Like, so Popovich is a really intimidating person, but in the poker industry, who would you say is the most intimidating player to interview?
There are 2 that stand out to me, and number 1 is definitely Phil Ivey. He carries this aura about him, this mystique about him. When he walks into a room, everybody's turning to stare at Phil Ivey. And also, he's a tough interview to get. He's very nice. I've asked him a decent amount of times by now for an interview. He always says no, but he's very nice about it. He says, no, maybe we'll do it some other time. I was doing some feature producing work for this last season of High Stakes Poker. So he basically had to sit down with me. He was forced to sit down with me. And it's just when kind of like Popovich, when you're sitting right across from a legend, you get a little nervous. But I think that's important. If you're a little nervous, it shows you that you care. And the other one besides Ivey, to me, has always been Eric Seidel, actually, because he is so quiet and he's mild-mannered, and he doesn't come across as intimidating, of course, but he's done so little media in the past, and he's so hard to get a hold of that you always think, hey, I could be that guy who finally sits down with Seidel. And I think that's a little bit intimidating. He's opened up a little bit after coaching Maria Konnikova, and she wrote that excellent book, The Biggest Bluff. So he does an interview here and there now, but I'm still hoping to get that sit down with Seidel and that sit down with Phil Ivey.
Mm-hmm. Non, parce qu'il disait par rapport. Donc voilà, on avait parlé de la NBA avec Popovic. Donc je me demandais qui était le joueur le plus intimidant dans le poker. Il a dit, bon, évidemment, il y a Phil Ivey, parce que rien que la façon déjà dont il vous regarde et tout, mais il dit, en soi, c'est quelqu'un de gentil, il n'est jamais méchant, mais il dit tout le temps non aux interviews, il n'a jamais accepté. Mais il dit tout le temps d'une manière sympa, il dit tout le temps peut-être la prochaine fois, mais sauf qu'il n'y a jamais de prochaine fois, mais bon, il répond toujours gentiment quand même. Et aussi Eric Seidel, parce que déjà, il est très très peu présent dans les médias, il donne quasiment aucune interview. Donc voilà, c'est un personnage qui est un peu intimidant aussi. Il s'est un petit peu plus ouvert avec Maria Konnikova qui a sorti son livre The Big Bluff. Mais sinon, il est quasiment impossible à avoir dans les médias en fait. Donc voilà, il aimerait bien ces deux interviews-là, ces deux interviews qu'il aimerait bien faire. Yeah, you commentating also the Super High Roller Ball Series on PokerGo and all the WSOP online from your Twitch channel. It had quite a lot of success. How like the online events is so different. So how do you manage to bring the same level of fun and excitement in comparison to like a live tournament?
Yeah, you're right. It's so different. And I think I was just lucky to have the online Twitch success last year. What happened was it's event number 1. It's on day 1 of the World Series of Poker online last year. I played the event. I busted the event. I'm just sitting on my couch and I see that Phil Hellmuth is running deep in the event. And I know that if you don't live in Nevada or New Jersey, you can't pull up the table. You just have no chance. So I wanted to give people a sweat. If you guys are wherever across the world, France, Spain, or even just in the United States, if you're in California, you can't pull it up. So I wanted to create a really casual atmosphere where we're all just sitting down, we're all just talking poker, and we're all just sweating the Phil Hellmuth and Daniel Negreanu's of the world. So my main pitch is, let's just sit down. I'm going to have a glass of wine. I'm going to have a couple tables up with a couple of big names. Which we love the wine. The wine is an important part of World Series of Poker online. So I have a bunch of tables up. We go back and forth between all the tables, but really it's just a place for all of us to get together and to talk and to express our love of the World Series of Poker and to express our love of the World Series of Poker bracelet and to really get that intense sweat going when one of the biggest names in the game, like a Hellmuth, like a Negreanu, runs deep and when history is on the line. And I just thought it worked out perfectly, especially last year. I'm not quite sure how it'll go this year. Since the world has opened back up a little bit, at least in Las Vegas, I'm not sure if we'll get the same kind of turnout, but I hope to try it again in some form or fashion. Maybe it'll be with PokerGo. And that's the main difference between online and live. Online, it just has to be more casual. It has to be more lighthearted. It has to be more fun because in the end, it's kind of boring, right? It's just cards face down. You have no idea what anybody has. I'm not a poker expert, so I'm not going to be able to provide you a top-notch analysis. Even if I did, I think it'd be pretty boring. So my goal is just to kind of lead you all through the action, just to show you what's going on, and really just to always have fun and have a good time.
Non, parce que je lui demandais comment, parce que c'est vrai que ces derniers temps, il n'y avait que des commentaires de tournois online. Il avait eu beaucoup de succès avec sa chaîne Twitch parce qu'il avait broadcast tous les events des WSOP online. Et il a dit que ça avait démarré, en fait, il avait joué l'event 1 le premier jour, il avait bust, et ensuite il y avait Phil Hellmuth right?
Oui, Phil Hellmuth.
Ouais, Phil Hellmuth, ouais.
Phil Hellmuth qui était en train de deep run le tournoi, et il s'est dit, en fait, ce qui est dommage, c'est que tous les gens qui sont hors du Nevada n'ont pas accès aux vidéos, donc personne ne peut regarder. Et donc, il s'est dit, je vais faire ça sur Twitch et je vais commenter avec un bon verre de vin. Et en fait, ça a eu un succès énorme. Il a fait toutes les séries comme ça. Et donc, il a dit, le but, c'était aussi juste de s'amuser, de prendre du bon temps, de montrer un petit peu aux autres que les gens puissent aussi participer et puis voir le déroulement des tournois quand on n'est pas domicilié dans le Nevada. Et que, en fait, c'était ça aussi le but, c'était de faire un truc un peu plus fun parce qu'on ne voit pas les cartes des gens, on ne sait pas ce qui se passe. Donc, c'est ennuyeux au final de regarder une partie de poker comme ça. Donc, d'essayer d'apporter un petit peu plus de fun et de rendre ça plus un petit peu attractif. Voilà, c'est le but des commentaires parce qu'il dit, je n'ai pas la prétention de faire des commentaires, faire des analyses de main et tout. parce que déjà, je pense que je le ferai pas très bien et ensuite, je pense que c'est pas le plus amusant à faire. Donc voilà, c'était plus pour apporter du fun aux gens et de leur permettre de participer et puis de voir ce qui se passait, quoi. And yeah, you said you're not a poker expert, but you still have some good results. You have like around 300K of live earnings and also some deep run online. So that's it's better than a lot of people actually. And so how do you consider yourself with poker? Do you work on your game? Do you want to be professional? Like what's your goal?
I don't want to be a professional just because I love poker broadcasting so much. So I always want to dedicate the majority of my time and resources towards broadcasting. Now, with that said, I love playing poker. And if I can play 2 or 3 tournaments a month, I'm thrilled. I'm just so happy to sit down and to compete. I mean, and you said it, I had a couple lucky runs in the past, and that just motivates me to get even better. I mean, we all play this game to win, right? We're all never happy with a second place finish or worse. We want to come out on top. And so I do find the time to work on my game, not just because I think it's important for my play, but I think I become a much better broadcaster if I'm more understanding of the game. So if I'm going through a couple of different training sites and I'm learning and learning and learning, sure, that's going to help me when I play. But most importantly, it's going to help me in the booth. It's going to help me lead into when I'm talking with Brent Hanks or Jamie Kerstetter or Maria Ho. It's going to help me set them up a little bit better if my knowledge is pretty strong, is pretty consistent about where No Limit Hold'em tournaments specifically are today.
Non, parce que je lui disais que pour voilà, quelqu'un qui n'est pas expert en poker, il a quand même environ 300 cas de gains live et aussi des beaux deep runs online, donc c'est quand même pas mal déjà. Donc c'était quoi un petit peu ses objectifs par rapport au poker et s'il travaille son jeu. Et donc il a dit, je ne me considère pas comme joueur pro et ce n'est pas mon objectif non plus parce que j'aime trop faire du broadcast de poker, donc j'aime trop voilà, présenter des émissions et commenter. C'est ça mon objectif numéro 1. Mais il dit après c'est plus aussi, ça m'aide aussi dans ma carrière aussi en tant que présentateur, de travailler mon jeu, de savoir au moins de quoi on parle, d'être meilleur dans les commentaires quand je suis avec voilà, des spécialistes avec moi en plateau, genre Maria Ho, Jamie Kerstetter, des gens comme ça, de voilà, au moins savoir vraiment de quoi on parle, surtout pour le No Limit Hold'em. Et aussi, bah, tout simplement, parce qu'il adore le jeu et s'il joue 2-3 tournois dans le mois, voilà, c'est génial, c'est ça qu'il aime et en gros, voilà, c'est plus par rapport à ça, un amour du jeu plus qu'autre chose, quoi. And yeah, we see you more and more on the poker scene, like with Twitch, with also PokerGo, like you're on so many different shows, and with also the podcast with Poker News. So what are your main goals now for the future of your career? What would you like to achieve?
Well, yeah, first, I'm sorry that you're stuck with me so much. I hope I don't pop up too much. You know, I think it's important for me just to continue to develop the relationship that I have with PokerGo and the relationship that I have with GG. And then there's kind of a triangle relationship of sorts there. Brent Hanks and I are fortunate enough to broadcast the GG World Series of Poker Super Circuit Series main event. That's a very long title for that. We'll do that in a couple weeks. We'll have some US Poker Open events to call. And those are important for me because not only are they on the PokerGo platform, but they are also, you know, they're delivered to NBC Sports. In the fall, when we have the World Series of Poker, I'm hoping to do as much sideline reporting as possible. So basically, like when Kara Scott can't do it and when Maria Ho can't do it, eventually they got to get to me, right? Like I'm way down on the list, but eventually they will call my name. So I'm hoping to get enough experience there because we're also distributed via Paramount Plus. We'll go on CBS Sports Network. I'm just looking for as many opportunities as I can possibly have. But I love this job so much. I'm really passionate about it, like I mentioned. So if I can just continue to be a part of, even a small part of the US Poker Open, of the PokerGo Cup coming up, of the PokerGo Heads Up Championship coming up, of the Poker Masters, of the Super High Roller Bowl, of the World Series of Poker. And, you know, eventually every poker broadcaster's dream is to broadcast the World Series of Poker main event, right? Like that doesn't mean I'm trying to push Lon McCarron off the cliff, but like eventually I would love to be involved with a tournament like that because that is the greatest poker tournament in the world. That's the cream of the crop. But I'm thrilled. I'm very fortunate with the opportunities that I've had so far, and just hope to continue to be a part of those.
Mm-hmm. Non, parce que je demandais, il est un petit peu partout maintenant dans toutes les émissions de PokerGo donc, et de Poker News aussi. Donc, je lui demandais un petit peu ses objectifs pour le futur de sa carrière. Qu'est-ce qu'il essayait d'atteindre et donc il a dit oui, c'est vrai qu'on voit de plus en plus, désolé, mais voilà, c'est vraiment une passion absolue et c'est génial de pouvoir participer à tous ces projets avec PokerGo parce qu'il y en a vraiment plein. Il y a les Poker Heads Up qui arrivent, il y a les tournois américains aussi qui arrivent qui vont être broadcast, il y a aussi voilà, les WSOP, il espère pouvoir faire
il est sur la liste, il est en bas, mais il est sur la liste.
Il est en bas parce qu'il a dit il y a Cara Scott, il y a Maria O, et ensuite, éventuellement, c'est moi qui vont finir par appeler. C'est un petit peu voilà, le troisième choix. Donc, j'espère bien y arriver un jour parce que c'est le rêve de tout présentateur de faire les WSOP, le main event. Et donc, voilà, il y a plein d'opportunités comme ça. PokerGo, c'est vrai qu'ils ont des projets tout le temps. Et donc, pour lui, c'est juste génial de participer à tout ça et de pouvoir développer plein de trucs comme ça. Donc voilà, il espère vraiment. Il dit je veux pas mettre Cara Scott dehors, mais c'est juste que bien. Voilà. S'il y a une opportunité qui s'ouvre, je suis là, ils peuvent m'appeler. Yeah, and I had another question. It's kind of a long question. So this is a subject we talked about a lot recently on the show with players like Rainer Kempe and Matt Berkey, because they were kind of saying that the poker entertainment has to evolve to get closer to what eSport does. Even if we're always gonna love shows like old school shows like Poker After Dark and big cash game stuff, poker shows still have to change to something more immersive maybe inside the player's head. So what are your thoughts about that? What's your opinion? What should be the new trend of the poker entertainment?
Yeah, it's a great question because we have to continue to evolve, right? I mean, like you said, we all love Poker After Dark and the new version of Poker After Dark, but we can't just put Poker After Dark on every day, every year and just say, okay, hopefully you guys will still like that. We do have to adapt to the current viewing climate. And what that climate has proven to us is they like shorter shows, not longer. So Poker After Dark, remember when it came back, it used to be these 6 or 7 hour streams and just go straight through, all the way straight through. And now they're saying, you know what, we need to chop these up because people's attention span is a lot smaller. There's a lot more that they could be doing. And only the diehard fans will sit there for 6 hours and watch a show. So now we have 45-minute episodes and they are once a week. We kind of format it like a Netflix series, of course. So you can binge watch them on PokerGo if that's something that you choose. But what I think will be the most important part of developing the poker product from a viewer's perspective will be the integration of sports betting and of fantasy sports. So we're going to take the DraftKings model, which is big in the States. I'm not sure if it's big internationally.
No, it's not.
It's not big here.
It's not in France, but I know it's a big market in the USA.
It's a big market in the US. And I think it could, people could really adapt to it worldwide, poker fans. So at the beginning of a US Poker Open, you're going to format your lineup. You're going to pick 6 different guys. You're going to have to fit them into a salary cap, and you're going to have your own fantasy team. And the 4 of us could create our own, and we go up against each other, and we're in a group, and there are prizes up for grabs, et cetera, et cetera. What I also think that we'll have is more integrated sports betting. So when we show you a final table of the US Poker Open and Aleem Shurovich has a big chip lead, we're going to list his odds. What are his odds to win? -150. And you can go on your app just like that. And you know what? I want to bet on Ali at -150. Oh, I see that Daniel Negreanu is 8th in chips, but I can get 20-1 odds on him. Okay, I'm going to bet on Daniel Negreanu right now. And so if you have a piece of the action, if you have a piece of the pie, even if it's just for like $5 or $10 or something, and you're relying on Daniel Negreanu to win every hand or to win the tournament, I think that is really going to help attract viewers to the product. Same thing with fantasy. You want your fantasy team to do well. That's why fantasy football is so big here in the States. We're just simple Americans. Like we just pick some people and we hope that they do well. And I think that same kind of philosophy could work in poker. It's just giving more people skin in the game.
Non, parce que je lui avais demandé, on en avait pas mal parlé avec Rainer Kempe et Matt Berkey, que l'industrie du poker devait évoluer, devait se rapprocher de quelque chose d'un peu plus du style du e-sport, et que voilà, les shows à l'ancienne devaient un petit peu changer pour un truc plus immersif qui donnait plus de part aux spectateurs en fait. Et donc il a dit oui, qu'il était complètement d'accord avec ça, que même si voilà, on adorera toujours les shows de cash game, etc., il fallait voilà, donner une part plus importante et essayer de faire quelque chose d'un peu plus participatif, à l'image un petit peu de ce qu'il fait dans DraftKings aux États-Unis. Par exemple, où tu peux créer ta team. Je ne sais pas exactement comment ça marche, mais tu crées ta
Un
team.
salaire, tu vois, c'est du fantasy sport, quoi.
Ouais.
Ouais, tu crées ta Fantasy League, etc. Et de faire quelque chose dans le poker, comme par exemple Poker US Open, de pouvoir mettre des bets, voir les odds des gens qui sont à la table finale, de poser des bets dessus, même si c'est 5-10 dollars, de faire des petits bets, mais de pouvoir donner aux gens l'opportunité de participer. Que voilà, si tu as mis 10 dollars sur Negreanu qui n'importe quelle bet sur lui, genre il gagne toutes les mains ou alors il gagne le tournoi, que ça donnait un petit peu plus de.
Ouais, tu vas plus suivre le show, quoi, si tu as l'impression de participer un peu.
Et que par exemple, avant, les trucs de Poker After Dark, c'était des trucs de 7 heures d'affilée. Donc, à moins que tu sois vraiment ultra fan de poker, personne ne suivait aussi longtemps une émission. Aujourd'hui, ils font des trucs de 45 minutes, c'est beaucoup plus condensé. Et donc, c'est plus vers ça qu'il faut amener les shows de poker, des trucs beaucoup plus rapides. Parce que
la
les gens,
Netflix, un peu ce qu'il disait,
de faire des shows plus rapides, voilà, qui captent plus l'attention des gens sur des durées plus courtes, et en essayant de faire quelque chose de plus participatif. Voilà. And yeah, also like I wanted to know, like for the next WSOP, so you don't know yet. I was wondering what was your project to broadcast the WSOP, if you are still going to do it with Poker News, like is there some new things coming up?
Yeah, that's a great question. And thank you for asking. I think for World Series of Poker Online, which is in July, I imagine I will do some kind of YouTube or Twitch stream. I'm just not sure if it'll be under the Poker Go umbrella or if it'll just be through my channel, but there will be something there. And then for the live World Series of Poker in October and November, I'm also hoping, nothing's finalized yet, but to be sideline reporter for the preliminary events, or for at least some of the preliminary events that we're able to feature on Poker Go and on Paramount Plus, which is CBS's streaming network. And then we also have our High Roller series that we do at the Poker Go studio. If any of you ever come down to Vegas and want a tour, let me know. So we have the US Poker Open, we have the Poker Go Cup, we have the Poker Go Heads Up Championship, which is a $100,000 buy-in invitational with 32 players. We have the Poker Masters, and we have the Super High Roller Bowl. And for those events, I'll either be in the broadcast booth doing play-by-play, or I'll be in studio as the break desk host. So that's kind of what I have going on throughout the rest of the year.
Non, il disait que pour cet été, donc les WSOP online, il n'y a rien qui était sûr encore, mais donc il allait sûrement faire des streamings, du broadcasting. Il n'y a rien encore de sûr qui était sur ce qui se passera en juillet. Et ensuite, pour les lives, donc l'automne prochain, pour le retour à Vegas, il espère faire aussi du reportage sur le terrain, donc dans les couloirs et tout, et faire des interviews, des trucs comme ça. Et aussi, il y a il peut faire visiter les studios de Poker Go. Donc, si on est à Vegas,
c'est cool.
ils ont
carrément.
Le poker, le Heads Up Master, c'est un 100K sur invitation, je crois. Trucs comme ça. Il y a le Super High Roller Bowl, il y a plein de shows, les Poker Masters, il y a tout plein de trucs. Donc, il y a vraiment... voilà, donc soit il sera aussi en broadcast et aussi sur le studio à faire des interviews des joueurs. Et donc ça, il y a plein de choses qui vont être mises en place pour l'automne. Donc, on est les bienvenus si on veut visiter les studios.
Avec plaisir.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
Great.
Nice.
J'ai une question pour lui. Vu qu'il est, on en parle de plus en plus, c'est vrai, depuis l'explosion de Queen Gambit, mais vu qu'il est en plein dans toutes les émissions de poker, etc., c'est vrai que dans le poker, on voit que des émissions, c'est génial, mais qui s'adressent finalement aux passionnés de poker. Et pour toucher le grand public, est-ce qu'il n'y aurait pas des projets, est-ce qu'il ne serait peut-être pas au courant, je ne sais pas, d'une petite série ou quoi, du coup peut-être sur CBS ou même sur Netflix ou au Poker Go, je ne sais pas.
No, yeah, I was wondering because, for example, the big success of the Netflix show, The Queen's Gambit. So everybody got interested by chess all of a sudden, all around the world. So if you know if something like that could happen, like with CBS or like brands like that, to have like a series around like poker, that would be something really great to have. So if by any chance you heard about a project like that?
Well, I think there are always those kinds of ideas, and they point towards two shows. Number one is, of course, The Queen's Gambit, and chess exploded in popularity, probably worldwide because of that show. Number two, what has been pointed to a lot recently is the Formula One show on Netflix, Drive to Survive. I mean, I personally have binge watched that over the last couple of weeks, but that's really getting hot here, and it's creating a new fan base, a very casual fan base, but a very new fan base for Formula One. And the hope is that if we can put out some kind of documentary series about poker, that could draw more people in on a mainstream level if it does get the Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu distribution deal. That route we could go, or we could go the Queen's Gambit route. The problem with that, of course, is that that's some serious money, right? To create a series like that, that's a kind of big budget type thing. I think there are always documentaries in the works, and hopefully there are bigger and bigger and bigger ones. I know Matt Berkey, who you guys have had on the show, and PokerGo and Solve4Why have partnered to release a documentary called To Be Determined, which follows a player around, which I think could draw some mainstream eyeballs. But it's just projects like that. If we keep thinking of what will appeal to mainstream viewers, where to turn it on, like I had no interest in Formula One or racing whatsoever, but once I turned it on, I was hooked. I was captivated by it. So we want the people that have no interest in poker, they've never played a hand in their life, they don't know the rules or anything. We want them to turn it on and be like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I think that's always the goal, that they're always people much more higher on the totem pole than me are always thinking about how we can draw new fans into the game and eventually new players.
Non, oui, c'est quelque chose qu'il aimerait beaucoup. Par exemple, il prenait un exemple aussi, donc la série sur la Formule 1. Il dit, moi, je suis pas fan, je regarde jamais les courses de Formule 1, j'y connais rien du tout, mais une fois que j'ai commencé à regarder ce show, voilà, j'étais à fond dedans. Et c'est vraiment ça qu'il faudrait au poker, comme tu disais, un truc vraiment qui s'adresse à tout le monde et pas aux fans de poker, pas aux gens qui connaissent déjà le jeu, pour attirer plus de gens sur découvrir ce qu'est réellement que le monde du poker. Donc il dit il y a quelques projets qui se font, comme par exemple avec Matt Berkey qu'on avait vu il n'y a pas longtemps. Donc sur PokerGo, ils vont sortir un documentaire qui suit le parcours du joueur, et donc le but c'est pas du tout de s'adresser aux fans déjà de poker, mais c'est de faire un truc très grand public pour s'adresser aux gens qui n'y connaissent rien et pour leur montrer voilà, l'industrie du jeu. Donc voilà, il n'a pas d'idée de trucs spécifiques en tête, mais ils essayent toujours de réfléchir à des projets comme ça pour s'adresser vraiment au plus grand public possible, pas seulement aux fans, quoi.
Moi, j'avais juste quand même une question, parce que je suis quand même un grand fan de NBA. Je suis obligé de lui poser une question, de savoir un peu les joueurs qu'il a pu rencontrer, qui l'ont marqué. Il a parlé de Coach Pop tout à l'heure, mais un peu de... Tu vois, il a eu l'occasion de rencontrer des immenses stars, j'imagine, et un peu qui c'est qui l'a marqué comme ça, comme joueur.
LeBron.
Yeah, he was asking because he's a big NBA fan.
Nice.
And he was wondering because you met with a lot of players, for sure, a lot of like very famous names. So like who do you remember the most? Who had the most impact on you? If you have some names.
You know, it was probably Kobe. It was probably Kobe, and it was just one question that I got to ask Kobe Bryant. It's a bunch of reporters sitting there as Kobe up on the stage for his last season. It was his last game in San Antonio, and he held a press conference, and I asked him one question about his relationship with Greg Popovich, and just the way he carries himself, and he looks right at you, and he really puts a lot of thought into his answer, and that just stuck with me because Kobe Bryant is like a superstar. He didn't need to care about my question. I'm just some stupid little San Antonio sports reporter. And he gave me the same time of day as he did to the ESPN reporter. So I've always kind of carried that with me. And that session, that question and answer kind of always had the best impact on me, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Non, pour lui, c'était plus Kobe Bryant, parce qu'il lui avait posé une question. C'était sa dernière saison, c'était son dernier match à San Antonio, et il lui a posé une question voilà, sur sa relation avec le coach Popovich. Et j'arrive pas à le dire.
Popovich.
Il a dit là, c'est la façon dont il m'a regardé vraiment hyper sérieusement, donc hyper dans la question, avec beaucoup de respect. Il a vraiment réfléchi à sa réponse, alors que j'étais même pas un reporter d'ESPN ou quoi, j'étais juste un petit reporter, et il m'a vraiment regardé droit dans les yeux pour réfléchir à donner une bonne réponse, alors que bon, c'est Kobe Bryant, il peut en avoir rien à foutre parce que de toute façon, c'est une méga star. Et il dit cette façon qu'il a eue d'être très sérieux et hyper respectueux envers moi, pour me donner la meilleure réponse possible, c'est quelque chose qui l'a vraiment beaucoup marqué. Voilà, c'était un grand moment pour lui. And yeah, another question, like last question about NBA too. I was wondering, because a lot of people argue about that. So, who is the best player of all time, according to you?
Yeah, I know there's an argument in the moment for LeBron James, but I think that's just because we're just watching it now. If LeBron James keeps this up for another 4 years, and let's say he wins another 2 championships, then I think the debate gets serious between him and Michael Jordan. But for me personally, when you break everything down, it's still got to be Michael Jordan as the best player of all time. But the door is open. The door is open for LeBron James to at least enter that conversation. I just got to see a little bit more, and it's got to start probably with another championship this year.
Ah oui, parce que c'est toujours le grand débat, Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. Et donc, il dit que pour lui, si LeBron James continue à faire aussi fort sur, disons, les 4 prochaines années et gagne encore 2 championnats, le débat pourrait être réellement ouvert. Mais pour l'instant, voilà, on en parle plus parce qu'il est encore en train de jouer. Mais que si on regarde un petit peu avec du recul, ça reste quand même Michael Jordan. Mais que
il a changé le monde du basket. Pour moi, c'est pas comparable, mais après. Bon.
Yeah, he's agree. He's saying like Michael Jordan completely changed the basketball world, and so it's not even a question. But que si LeBron James gagne encore un championnat ou 2, là le débat pourrait être réellement ouvert, sérieusement. Mais pour l'instant, c'est pas encore le cas. Voilà. Yeah, that's it. It was really nice to have you. I was just wondering, do you miss sometimes your choice of moving to the poker industry versus staying in the NBA? Because some people told me like, no way, like why would you?
Yeah, sometimes I get a little tired of Brent Hanks, the guy who sits next to me. But other than that, it's perfect. I mean, this is everything I could ask for. I've always had a passion for sports broadcasting and a passion for poker. So to be able to put that together has just been fantastic for me, and absolutely no regrets. I'm happy to be here in poker. I see a future in poker, and thank you guys so much for having me. It's good seeing you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, if you ever go to France, we usually have the show on the studios with a lot of wine bottle. Very good.
Yeah. If you like wine.
So you're welcome. You're welcome if you travel to Paris to the studio, and yeah, it'll be nice.
Okay, I'll come to the studio there, and you guys can come to the Poker Go studio in Las Vegas. We have a bar. It'd be great.
Oh, okay. That's great. That's great.
Okay, so alcohol is really the link between us.
Yep. It's how we can make world peace. Alcohol.
So
we'll be
cheers.
good to go.
Cheers.
Oh, cheers. There we go. All right. Thank you guys. Have a good one. Okay.
Thank you. Bye, Jeff. Thank you very much.
Take care.